So today we're going to dive into this really powerful story, a parable about a man who prayed for a divine visit, and well, he got exactly what he asked for, but his own ideas about how it should happen completely blinded him to the miracle that was literally knocking at his door. Let's see how this whole thing unfolds.
Okay, so our story is all about this man named Daniel. He was a deeply religious guy, a real pillar in his community. But he had this one huge, singular desire deep in his heart. More than anything in the world, he just wanted to have a direct, personal encounter with God. And I mean, this wasn't just some passing thought. It was the absolute core of his entire spiritual life.
And then, one night, something truly extraordinary happens. In the quiet of his prayers, Daniel gets this feeling, this sense that his plea wasn't just heard, but it was answered. And this is a moment that's going to change everything for him. And this is the promise he receives. Not a loud voice, but this quiet certainty that just settles deep in his soul. Can you imagine the joy, the sheer disbelief? The moment he's been praying for his whole life is actually going to happen. God is visiting him tomorrow. I bet he barely slept a wink that night.
The second the sun came up, Daniel was just a whirlwind of activity. I mean, everything had to be perfect, spotless, absolutely worthy of his guest. He wasn't just cleaning. It was like he was creating this flawless stage for a divine performance. He cooked this incredible meal, set out his absolute finest dishes, and then he sat down to wait.
But this is where things get interesting. Daniel's vision of a perfect, clean, orderly visit is about to smash right into the messiness of the real world. What's about to happen isn't just a series of interruptions. These are crucial tests. And the first one starts with a simple knock at the door. So it's around mid-morning, and then a knock. Daniel's heart just leaps into his throat. This is it. He's here. He practically runs to the door, just buzzing with excitement and anticipation, totally ready to welcome his long-awaited guest. But when he opens the door, it's not who he was expecting at all. It's a small, shivering boy, his face all streaked with dirt and tears. And his request is so simple, so basic, it feels completely out of place with all of Daniel's grand preparations. And right here, this is the core conflict of the whole story. On one side, you have a real, immediate human need, and on the other, you have Daniel's rigid focus on his plan. He looks at his perfect table, at his special meal, and he sees this little boy as a distraction. So, gently but firmly, he closes the door. Okay, so about an hour goes by. Then, another knock at the door. Daniel, still full of hope, hurries to open it again. This time, he finds an old man, shivering in a coat that's way too thin, just trembling from the biting cold. And again, think about what he's asking for. It's so basic, right? A moment of warmth, a brief escape from the cold. All the man is asking for is a simple act of kindness. But notice how Daniel's thinking is kind of shifted here. It's not just about waiting for a guest anymore. It's about preserving the purity of the space. The old man looks dirty. He might track in mud. And so, the need to keep everything perfectly clean wins out over the need for compassion. The door closes once more. Now it's late in the afternoon. There's a final knock, and it's so soft he almost doesn't hear it. He opens the door to find a woman, looking completely exhausted, holding a crying baby in her arms. The day is almost over, and you can just feel Daniel's frustration building. Her plea is just desperate. You can tell they're travelers, they have nowhere to go. She's not even asking to stay, just for a little water, a little bit of help. And that's it. That's the final refusal. At this point, any pity he might have felt is completely overshadowed by his own annoyance. These constant interruptions are ruining his sacred vigil. He sends them away, his mind still laser-focused on the guest who hasn't shown up. So, the sun goes down. That beautiful meal he cooked is getting cold on the table. The candles are burning low, and that perfect, spotless house is now just silent and empty. The great day of visitation has ended in nothing but deep disappointment. All alone in the quiet, Daniel finally kneels down to pray, and his question is just filled with confusion and heartbreak. He did everything right, didn't he? He prepared everything perfectly. So why was he abandoned? And right there, in that moment of sincere despair, an answer finally comes. But it's not from the door. It comes from within the silence of the room itself. The big revelation is about to happen. The voice is gentle, but the words, they just shatter his whole world. That first test, that first opportunity, that was the visit. God was right there in the hungry child.
And it doesn't stop there. The revelation continues. That second interruption, the dirty old man Daniel worried would mess up his floors, that was also the divine guest he was so desperate to honor.
And finally, the third visitor. That exhausted mother and her crying baby. That was the last form the visit took. 3 times the promised guest arrived, and 3 times Daniel completely failed to recognize him.
So here's the real gut punch, the moral of the story. Daniel's failure wasn't about a lack of faith or preparation. It was a failure of perception. He was so busy looking for God in majesty and splendor that he completely missed God showing up in the humble, hungry, and vulnerable faces of human need.
You can just imagine the weight of this truth settling on Daniel. But here's the amazing part. It doesn't crush him. It transforms him. He finally truly understands, and this profound realization changes his life from that day forward.
The very next day, he puts a new sign on his door. It's not a sign of piety or self-importance. It's a public declaration of his new understanding. It's a promise, really, that he will never again be too busy, too clean, or too focused on his own plans to see the divine in the face of a stranger.
And that leaves all of us with a really powerful question, doesn't it? Daniel was looking for a spectacular guest, but he was met with simple need. He was expecting a grand event, but he was offered a simple opportunity for service. It's a story that challenges our whole idea of what is sacred. So in our own lives, with all our plans and expectations, how do we learn to recognize the important moments when they knock, looking nothing at all like we thought they would?